Hey, it's Jeff. Welcome back to another video. I recently put my HOYA CALLISTOPHYLLA on Instagram as it is currently flowering, and I did get a bunch of comments asking how I care for this plant as well as how do I get my Hoyas to flower. So I'm just going to share some of the things that I do to care for this plant, and hopefully yours can eventually get some flowers here as well. I have to get a close-up of these flowers as this is kind of the main focus of the plant this week because it is flowering. It did have a peduncle right here that I didn't either notice the flowers or it didn't get to the flowering stage and they basically just fell off. So this is the first, I guess, noticeable flowers that I've seen off of this plant, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. They just look like little pieces of star candy or something like that, and they smell super sweet. It's not like a very strong fragrance, like you can't notice it from across the room, but if you smell the flowers, they smell absolutely delightful. Now, one plant in particular, like the Hoya Sunrise, that one flowers for me all the time, and you could smell it from about like 6 feet away just sitting on the couch. It's a very potent smell, but this one is just a nice light sweet smell. I've had this plant now for just under 2 years. In October of 2019, I think, is the first Instagram picture that I have of this plant. And it was basically just a few little leaves at the bottom. Obviously, it's grown quite a bit on this trellis. It's gotten quite a few new leaves. So the first thing I want to talk about is the light requirements for this plant, or the light that I give this plant. Everything that I read, they always say, you know, put a plant in bright indirect sunlight, but this plant is in an east-facing window. It gets plenty of morning direct sunlight. You can see it's just soaking up the sun. It's about 10:30 right now. It does get maybe a little sun stressed. You can see there's a little bit of a red hue to the leaf there, but it does not get any sun damage, like there's no sunburn or anything like that. It might get a little bit of bleaching, like the leaf will turn a little bit lighter. It can tolerate direct sunlight, but if you first bring the plant home, just don't throw it in this window. Maybe put it off to the side a little bit, just so it doesn't get as much sunlight, and just slowly introduce it into the higher light location. But yeah, just to show you, mine gets a lot of morning sunlight, and it seems to be liking this location. Don't mind my dirty windows, but yeah, it's doing really well. I just watered this plant the other day. You can see the soil is pretty damp. So yeah, I'm not going to be giving it any water today, but it is in a smaller terracotta pot. If you watch this channel for any length of time, you know I like to use terracotta because it's quite absorbent. It's very porous. It pulls moisture from lower in the pot or lower in the soil, and basically it evaporates it out, so that way it doesn't stay wet or damp for too long. So for watering this, obviously I let my Hoyas dry out completely, and one way to tell that if it needs water or not, I will check the leaves. So these leaves are pretty stiff, and the lower ones, they're a little bit thicker. Some of the newer ones, they feel maybe like a little bit thinner, but whenever I'm able to bend the leaf, if it feels a little soft, then I know it needs some water, and obviously making sure that the soil's been dry or completely dry. So yeah, I will just feel the leaves. If they feel stiff, then I will not give it any water. Once I start to feel they're able to be bent a little bit, then I'll take it over and give it a good thorough watering. So I will water it till it comes out the bottom of the drain hole, just making sure that the pot feels a little bit heavier than it did. So, and then I'll just put it back in a sunny location, and again, just keep checking the soil and the leaves, making sure that you're not overwatering this plant. Just like most other houseplants, I'm here in Canada, so in the winter time, these plants might still grow, but they might slow down a little bit. So just make sure that you cut back on the amount of water that you give it, as well as the frequency. And then once spring hits and you start to see a bunch of new growth, then you can get back to kind of that regular watering routine. With every houseplant, including this one, having the appropriate soil is key to its survival, I guess. If you have a proper or well-draining soil, it's really difficult to overwater a plant to the point where it gets root rot. So what I use for most of my Hoyas is Pro Mix's Premium Tropical Plant Mix, and I'll also mix in some of their orchid bark. It's rather large, like they got some pretty big chunks. This bag's almost empty, but you can see it's got a lot of perlite, and those black things are charcoal. So that just makes a nice chunky airy mix. That way it doesn't hold on to moisture for too long, so that it leads to root rot. So this is what I use for most of my houseplants, and including my Hoyas. So I'll use probably about 50% of the tropical soil, 50% of the orchid bark, mix it in, and it's just a nice airy mix. I know this does not have any orchid bark in it. It hasn't been repotted for a couple of years, so it'll probably need a repotting next year. But this is what I've been using for my houseplants now. It's just the orchid bark and the tropical soil. This is the fertilizer that I've been using for my Hoyas. It's a fairly mild 1-1-1 nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And basically what I do, I just follow the instructions on the back, and it says add 4 little pumps or squirts to a watering can, a 1 liter watering can, and basically just water it as you normally would. I'll probably do this about once a month through the growing season. If it is still pushing out growth in the winter, then I still fertilize my houseplants, but I might cut this in half, like the recommended dose in half. So maybe instead of 4 pumps, I might give it 2 pumps throughout the winter, as the plant isn't growing as vigorously as it would during the summer, so it doesn't need as much water and doesn't need as much nutrients. Now, if it's still growing, that doesn't mean it doesn't need any nutrients at all. So yeah, just cut the recommended dose maybe in half and go from there. And here's Pickles this morning. Every time I do a video upstairs, she usually does a little growl or bark or something like that, but you're a good girl this morning. Hey, you're just sitting in the sun. You haven't been in a video for a while. People are gonna start asking about you. Such a funny girl. Okay. So the next thing is humidity and temperature for this plant. Right now I have 44% humidity as well as 22 degrees. I'll try and keep my upstairs at around the 50%. Oh, it's coming up now. But this is typically what I like to keep my house at through the summer and winter, is kind of that 22 degrees. So around that, oh, it's coming up now. What's going on here? It's coming up to around 47% now, but like, I try and maintain around that 50% humidity. If in the winter here it gets pretty dry and it's down into like the 30s, I might add a little humidifier. But yeah, this is basically what I have all my houseplants growing in right now. Some succulents, tropicals, Hoyas, all that kind of stuff. Let's see here, some more Hoyas soaking up some sun. I'm not going to be doing it on this plant today, but for propagation, it's no different than propagating any other Hoya. If you want to propagate this section of the stem, basically what I would do is cut it right close to the top portion of a leaf node. Eventually you will get a new stem popping out from that node, and this section of the stem you can put in water, you can put it in sphagnum moss, whatever you want. And on the stem you can see there is a few little bumps or nubs on it. Those are little aerial roots. Those are most likely where the roots will sprout from, and then you can put it in soil, whatever you want. You can make an entirely new plant just from taking this propagation off, or you can put it back in this one, make it a nice full pot, whatever you decide to choose. Propagation is super easy for Hoyas. I do have a few videos. I have been primarily propagating my Hoyas in perlite in my little propagation boxes. I will be doing another like Hoya houseplant video, and I might show some of my propagations as well. So actually I'm going to show you some of my Hoya propagations right now. Where are they? Right here. I think I have a Hoya Finlaysonii in here. It's in the other box. Here is one Hoya. So you can see I cut the top off, and there's another section right there. But these are the roots on this stem, looking really good. They can be potted up soon. Oops, I don't want to disturb that plant. And I just stuffed that stem in the perlite like that. This one here as well. It's got some nice roots. Yeah, right here. Oops, I left them out of the perlite. Shoot. Okay, well I gotta put them back in, but huge roots on this one. I don't know what's going on there. I gotta dig it back down, cover those roots up, otherwise they're gonna get dry. Here's another cutting as well of the Finlaysonii. This is very similar to the Callistophyllla leaf, but yeah, I'm gonna have to pot those up in some soil here soon. I almost completely forgot to explain how I get my Hoyas to flower. So first off, I am not an expert. I'm just learning as I go. So please go easy on me in the comment section if you know a little bit more about this topic. But I know that some houseplants will flower as a way to reproduce if they're feeling stressed. So that's what I do with my Hoyas. I stress them out. So I put them in higher than normal light, or higher light than they would normally tolerate. So that can stress them out. Sun stress. That's what it does. It just provides a little bit more of an extreme condition than what they are normally used to. Another thing is, for most of my Hoyas, like I said earlier, I use terracotta, but I will also use smaller pots. So Hoyas, I find they like to be a little bit more root bound. That again just causes a little bit more stress to their growing conditions. I also like to let my Hoyas get a little bit drier than they normally like, so I will let them get to that phase or stage where the leaves are a little bit more pliable. So again, that's one more thing that just kind of stresses them out, and they basically go into panic mode, push out some flowers, and hopefully it can reproduce that way. So that's really all I do. So I think that's gonna be pretty much it for this video. If you have any comments or questions about this plant, please leave it down in the comment section. I always appreciate the ongoing support. Thanks for watching my videos. Take care, everyone. Bye.